Okay. Hello, everyone. Welcome to today's masterclass. I'm Josefina Sauti, Product Marketing Manager at ZIGURAT, and thank you for being here today. So just a quick overview of ZIGURAT for those of you who may not know us. So ZIGURAT is an online institution. We have over 20 years of experience in e-learning, and we provide master's and postgraduate programs in architecture, engineering, and tech management. So we have a very vibrant and diverse community of both professors and students. We have people from 120 different countries, more than 20,000 people. So in that picture, you can see one of our student weeks. That's an in-person event we have every year. So it's a very interesting community that we create with our programs. So precisely today's event is related to two of the programs we offer. We have a master's in BIM management. This is a one-year program that starts November this year. And then we have a postgraduate program in AI for construction. This is a 4-month program. You can scan the QR codes, but then my colleague Dimitrios will give you more details about this. So stay tuned till the end. And today's speaker is Onyema. Onyema is content and web designer at Blaze. He's a BIM specialist, and he's one of the professors of the BIM masters I just mentioned. So without further ado, I'll give the floor over to you, Onyema. I'll stop sharing my screen, and it's all yours.
Okay. Okay, good day, everyone. Hope you can all hear and see me clearly.
Yeah.
All right, so of course, today, as been introduced, we are going to be discussing how we can integrate AI and BIM for advanced solutions. So my name is Onyema Udeze. I have a background in architecture, and I'm also a BIM specialist. I do a lot of BIM modeling and coordination. And I use a lot of tools, most especially I use Autodesk Revit, and I have multiple certifications. And I also create online courses. I have a couple of courses on LinkedIn Learning, and I'm also one of the lecturers or professors at ZIGURAT. So to start, this is the agenda of this masterclass. First of all, I will begin by giving a brief description of what AI and BIM is all about. And then I will provide an overview of the evolution of digital transformation in the architecture, engineering, construction, and operations sector. And then I will also emphasize on the importance of organizational implementation for AI instead of just jumping around, being driven by the boss. You need to have an organizational plan. And then after that, I will provide some AI BIM use cases, and then also provide some barriers and the way forward. Finally, I'll do a brief demo, and hopefully we'll have some time to do some Q&A. So to get into the discussion, what exactly is AI? Interestingly, this is a definition that was also provided by an AI tool, which is ChatGPT. So I just ask it to give me a one-sentence definition of what AI is. So as you can see here, it says that AI is the simulation of human intelligence processes by machines, especially computer systems, to perform tasks such as learning, reasoning, and problem solving. So this is quite a technical definition, but to break it down, I would say that historically, we've always programmed tools and software by, developers writing a lot of codes, trying to simulate real-life scenarios and the use cases for that software. So they try to program it, and the software will behave in that manner. But when it comes to AI, what developers do is to train these models or train what you call neural networks or the engines with a lot of data. In most cases, you can have millions or even billions of data. And as you begin to train these systems, they begin to develop their own level of intelligence. And at some point, they can begin to actually carry out some tasks that normally will require human intelligence. So you can have things like natural language processing. For example, you can communicate with ChatGPT like a chatbot, or you can also use systems to be able to decipher images through computer vision and stuff like that. So this is possible because those systems have been trained over time with a lot of data, and now they are not able to think to some extent on their own, even though today what we have is still narrow AI, meaning that they excel in just one particular task. For example, ChatGPT can communicate with it You can also have things like the Tesla AI that can use to drive cars. You cannot use that to probably harvest your crops in the farm and all that. So most of the AI tools you have today are still narrow, but in the future, we're expecting to have what you call ASI, which is artificial super intelligence and all that. So, but we're still at the beginning of that journey. So that's basically a very broad and brief definition of what AI is about. Now, like I said, the tools, they can process and generate information with vast data sets used to create them. And sometimes they can even behave in unpredictable ways, which is why sometimes AI, some people refer to them as black box, because sometimes the way they give us information or the way they process the data that we give to them, we are not so sure how they process it internally. So it's kind of a black box, but they're able to think on their own. Now that is it for AI. On the other hand, what is BIM? This is also a brief description from ChatGPT. I asked it to define BIM for me in one sentence. And this definition here, it says that a digital process that involves creating and managing a detailed 3D model of a building's physical and functional characteristics throughout its life cycle, which is also a technical definition. But of course, I'm not going to spend so much time trying to define what BIM is, because I'm sure that almost everyone on this call have a basic knowledge of what BIM is all about. Of course, it's a process, and it's also the technology-based process that also involves people. But then most of the tools that we have today for BIM, if you will agree, they're all traditional tools, meaning that if you remember the definition I gave for AI, they're all programmed traditionally to predict, the use cases. For example, you have a software like Revit, it's programmed for architects, engineers, and all that, and it's being tailored towards various use cases. And in scenarios where they're not able to meet some of those use cases, you now extend their capabilities with things like plugins, add-ins, macros, and whatnot. You can use Dynamo, you can use a lot of plugins on the Autodesk App Store, and a lot of things to stretch its capability. So that's BIM. So what I'm trying to say is that most of the tools we have today for BIM are traditional tools. So the question now becomes, how does AI come into the picture? So that's the focus of this webinar. We're going to be looking at how we can integrate artificial intelligence and building information modeling to give us a more advanced solution. But then, before I begin to dive into the AI use cases, it's important to trace how we've evolved as an industry over time. So in the 1980s, computer-aided design, which is CAD, disrupted how AEC, architectural design and construction professionals, how we communicated. I mean, before then, we used to draft on paper with pen, pencil, and whatnot to communicate. But then when computer-aided design came into the picture, we began to use computer to assist us in communicating our designs. And that was spearheaded with the emergence of tools like AutoCAD and MicroStation. That was in the 1980s, early 1980s. But then even in the same 1980s, I mean, ArchiCAD, for example, is a BIM tool, and it emerged first in 1987. So even in the 1980s, BIM has begun to come into the picture. But then before the end of 1990s, we began to hear of building information modeling. I mean, Revit, as popular as it is today, came into the picture in 2000, and it was acquired by Autodesk in 2002, if I'm correct. So before the end of 1990s, we began to hear of building information modeling, which was eventually accelerated by tools like ArchiCAD and Revit. But then one of the challenges we encountered with the emergence of CAD and BIM was that there was so many software, both CAD and BIM, in the market, and it was becoming increasingly hard for a lot of these tools to communicate. So we began to have interoperability issues, and one of the first attempts that were made by the software vendors was to introduce standard formats like IFC that most of these tools can communicate through. So most of the BIM and CAD tools can export to IFC, and it can allow multiple software vendors and designers and whatnot to communicate to some extent. But even at that, it still had its own challenges. So it wasn't surprising that the software vendors themselves also began to look at other more efficient ways to also ease this collaboration. And in the early 2000s, we began to also witness the emergence of cloud-based command data environments, which is now trying to add some level of cloud collaboration to these tools. And that was to some extent another advantage above the IFC collaboration that we used to have. So as industry grappled with BIM evolution, we also witnessed the emergence of cloud-based command data environment solutions now in the early 2000s. So this to me is like the third evolution, moved from CAD to BIM to what I call connected BIM, or what is popularly called in industry, connected BIM, where we are now migrating to the cloud to ease collaboration. But then, as much as common data environments was trying to solve the issue of collaboration among stakeholders, it also became evident that it's also a good avenue to, exchange information through data exchange, which we now begin to see tools today like Speckle and Autodesk Data Exchange that allows professionals to, extract data. So what I'm trying to say that ultimately we move from CAD to BIM to connected BIM, and this connected BIM will help us to resolve the interoperability issues by adding a data layer in both CAD and BIM tools. And at the same time, it also provides the granular data that we need to now advance the emerging next-gen AI tools. So if I'm to say, you see that the cloud-based solutions we have today and the ones that are emerging every day will now help us to build more intelligent AI tools, but I'll still talk about that in the coming slides. So as the AI buzz came into the picture, I mean, it became a very big buzz in the late 2022 when ChatGPT came into the picture. OpenAI launched ChatGPT in November 2022. And between that time and now, a lot of things have happened. So many AI tools are emerging daily, and that can be overwhelming. So it's easy to drown in the hype of AI. So which is now why it's important to also have what you call an organizational implementation strategy before we can begin to explore what exactly are the BIM use cases, how we can merge AI and BIM. So before I talk about exactly which is the focus of this class, which is integrating AI and BIM, it's also important to have a brief overview of the importance of organizational implementation plan or strategy for every AEC firm. So just like BIM, AI is also a change management process. I mean, it's technology backed, and just like every change management process, you always have three pillars, which is the people that are involved, the process itself, which is your business changes and all that are involved, and also the technology itself. So today we have a lot of AI tools that are emerging in the market. So these three pillars are very important. So if I'm to put it in context, it's always important that a firm, instead of just jumping into the AI hype, I mean, for example, today you hear that there's a tool called Veras from Evolve Lab that can help you to automate your documentation in Revit, and just jump in and purchase the tool. Tomorrow you hear about using ChatGPT to create custom GPTs, to train it with your own data, and you launch and purchase that. Tomorrow you hear about Lucid AI, next tomorrow. So you just jump all over the place. If you don't have any cohesive implementation strategy behind all this, it can become expensive over time. And as you can see, there are a lot of costs that can also come with AI implementation. So just summarizing, it's very important that you have a business analysis as a firm and decide where exactly you need to focus for your implementation. So this might require some organizational restructuring in terms of your talent. So you need to review the talent you have in place. What are their strengths, what are their weaknesses? So it might also require you to employ some new people. This can be full-time, it can be contract, it can be outsourced, and it also might require you to carry out what you call taking, shaping, or making new solutions. So I will explain these three terms. So there are three scenarios. Let's say, for example, you want to enhance your documentation as a firm using AI. So you can just go into the market and purchase an out-of-the-box solution. I will still show a lot of solutions in the coming slides. But let's say you take up a popular tool today, which is the Veras from Evolve Lab. You can just, that's what you call taking. You're basically taking an out-of-the-box solution. And then another scenario is you might actually shape an existing solution. So for example, you can get the ChatGPT Premium and you can use your company data and standards and documents and whatnot to customize that existing solution to now create a bespoke solution for your company. So that's what you call shaping. So you can either take an existing solution, you can take an out-of-the-box solution, you can shape an existing solution to meet your needs, or you can even make make an entirely new solution. So as a company, if you have the data, like I said, to train a new data AI or whatever for your company, you might need to use billions or millions of data to train that system, right? So as a company, if you have that much data and you also have the resources, the financial resources and the technical resources that you need to do that, you might decide that you can create, although even though in our industry, that is not so common, but it's something that you can easily find in IT sectors. Companies like Microsoft and Apple and the likes, they have the resources and they have the data to do that. So it may not be ideal. So in our industry, most of the things we'll be seeing is either you are taking up an out-of-the-box solution or you are shaping an existing solution like custom GPTs and whatnot. So this is where business analysis comes in. So as a company, it's important that you sit down and analyze what are your strengths, what are your weaknesses, what of your HR resources, your human resources and whatnot. How much do you have in place? How much can you change? What is the best track that you can take and all that? So all these analyses will also give you insight into the cost implications, the return on investment and all that before you now embark on the solution. So these are now the potential cost implications. By the time you finish the analysis, these are some implications that can come in terms of cost. So depending on the solution that you take, it might require some cloud expenses. If you are if you are shaping a solution, you might need to host on the cloud. So that might require some cloud expenses. And also prompt engineering is also something that is increasingly becoming important. If for example, you are using Midjourney or Stable Diffusion, for example, to create some custom solutions, you might need to, even ChatGPT might need to do a lot of prompt engineering. So those things can also come with costs. And also talent as well. Like I said, you might need to hire new skills. You might need to outsource some things. You might need to acquire some people, I mean, part-time and whatnot. So whichever way you go about it, you might still run into some talent costs. And of course, the operation costs. So a lot of times, people just think about these solutions. They think that once you acquire it, that's the end. But you also need to keep, AI is something that is continuous. So you need to keep it operational. And sometimes you also need feeding into new data and keeping it up to date and whatnot. So that's the operational cost. So these are some costs that you need to think about before you embark on that journey. And they also need to think about the infrastructure cost. So if, for example, you are not hosting on the cloud, you are using your local infrastructure to manage your system and solution and whatnot, you also need to think of maybe servers, you need to purchase new hardware, some of this AI, they are graphic GPU intensive. So you might need to purchase new set of laptops, workstations, servers and whatnot to, make it operational. So those are things that you need to also think about. And then finally, you also have your data security cost. I mean, if you are in places like Europe, for example, regulation is something that is very important. So you need to make sure that your data is very secure. You don't want to leak your data out there. And even if not just for regulation, you need to make sure that, cyber crime is not, you don't become a victim to such kind of things. So there are a lot of cost implications that people don't think about when they think about implementing AI. So which is why it's very important that you go through this business analysis. At the end of the day, what you now have is what you call your business implementation plan. So when you now have this plan, you can now decisively choose the route that you take as a company. So far I've talked about the definition of AI and BIM. I've also talked about the evolution of AI or evolution of this transformation in our industry. And I've also talked about the organizational implementation plan. So the next thing I want to talk about is the AI BIM use cases, which I believe that's what a lot of people are more interested in this presentation. So I will present 10 different AI BIM use cases. I mean, these are like low-hanging fruits or areas where we can use AI to supplement or integrate BIM to give us, advanced solutions, which is the title of this presentation. So the first low-hanging fruits I have here is project documentation. So in every project, we have all these annotations, documentations, and whatnot that we carry out. Those are things that can take your time. They are really boring tasks and a lot of things. So today we have a lot of solutions that are coming up that can actually help us to fast track. For example, what you see here is the Griff Copilot, which is from Evolve Lab. And they also have the Swap AI, which is also what you see down here. So there are a lot of solutions, but these are areas where you can begin to, have this kind of natural language NLP, where you are basically typing and you're communicating with a copilot, so to say, and it is helping you to automate some of these project documentation tasks. So that is one of the areas where AI is looking promising. And of course, I have to mention that a lot of the tools that we're presenting here, some of them might not be completely AI driven, but this is just me showing you areas where AI can actually help us, to integrate with BIM. So the first use case here is project documentation. And the second use case that I have here is generative design. So as an industry, we've moved from CAD to BIM, and generative design is a design workflow that is looking promising, looking like the way of the future, where instead of us, modeling based on our skill sets, we are basically giving these tools some guides more or less, and they will give us samples and a lot of, so they will help us do a lot of conceptual design analysis and a lot of things. So generative design is an area where AI can immensely help us, and there are some promising tools as well that are emerging in the market, and a very popular one is Autodesk Forma, which I'm sure that most people have head of today. Autodesk Forma it has generative design capabilities. You have digital blue foam, you have Hyper, Consigli, Giraffe. I mean, what you see here is basically extracted from the Giraffe website. So there are a lot of tools that have the generative design capability, and this is one area that AI can actually help us a lot in the future. And then the third use case I have here is code compliance. I mean, what you see here is basically extracted as well from struct.build. So this is just basically, to me, I believe it's a custom GPT that has been trained using a lot of standards and code in the industry. So you can actually query these GPTs, and they can actually help you with a lot of code compliance. So instead of you spending so much time to make sure that your design is meeting a lot of these regulation and compliance requirements, you can actually use some of these custom solutions in the market. And this is also where, instead of taking us a solution like struct.build, for example, you can also train it with your own. I mean, you can create a custom GPT and feed it with all the standards and whatnot that you might have purchased, and you can begin to query it, and it will begin to give you. And the good thing about this struct.build that you see here is that when you query it, it will also give you it will give you a reference to where it got that information from, as you can see here on the right side, so that you can also go to that website and verify for yourself. So it can save you a lot of time, and this is areas where AI can begin to help us a lot. You also have solutions like Lucid AI, up.codes, and the like. So code compliance is an area in the future where AI can really help us a lot. And then the fourth use case I have here is model generation. So we can use AI in the future to automatically generate BIM models from PDF files, images, CAD models, and whatnot. So instead of you spending so much time creating the BIM model, you can actually feed these tools with a PDF file, for example, and it's to give you a starting point, a good starting point. Of course, that might not be the final solution, but it will save a lot of time. I mean, AI in the future can actually help us to imagine where you can just get the PDF file. Most of the projects, existing projects today, you might not have any other information other than the PDF. Some of them you might even have just images, and you can just feed this to an AI tool and it will help you to generate a BIM model. So some tools that we have in this category today have tools like BIMify, BIMit, or Reverse. I mean, what you see here on the left is basically extracted from the Reverse website as well. So these are solutions that can actually help us to generate 3D models very quickly. So that's another BIM use case for AI. And then another solution that we'll have, or another BIM use case that we'll have, is BIM authoring. So like I mentioned earlier, a lot of the emerging 3D tools today are completely cloud-based solutions. So a solution like Autodesk Forma, for example, is completely cloud-based, it's fileless. I mean, you don't need to be worrying about file formats like .rvt, .dwg, and whatnot. These are completely fileless, cloud-based solutions. And these tools, I mean, because they can generate a lot of granular data, it's easier for us to actually further train these solutions and make them even much more intelligent. So, of course, in addition to the solutions that I mentioned under generative design, these are also some popular solutions that also, there are areas where AI can begin to help us with BIM authoring. And we have solutions like Infonius, SnapTrude, Onyema, as well as all the tools under generative design. So just to go back to the place, these are the tools that I have here. This Autodesk Forma, Digital Blue Foam, Hyper, Consigli, Giraffe, in addition to the ones that I have here. These are all tools that can help us to, author. So instead of using, maybe in the next 10 years or thereabouts, you might not actually be using Revit. I'm sure even Autodesk themselves, they are beginning to pour a lot of energy into Forma because they are seeing the scenario or what is coming in the future, where we are going to be working less on desktop tools and more on cloud-based tools because they are much more easier to infuse all these AI integrations. So that's another use case, I believe is number 5. And then the 6th one is engineering. So there are a lot of engineering use cases actually. So we can have structural, for example, what you see here is this Desi.ai. which is using AI to simulate a lot of timber designs. So it just gives you a lot of solutions, and you can pick the most functional one. So you can use it for your timber designs. You can Augmented.ai is basically for electrical design today, but they are even working on other engineering aspects like mechanical, structural, and whatnot. I also have Structure Plus. So there are a lot of areas where AI can also help engineers, even though they might not be as many as that of architectural and all that. But engineering is also another low-hanging fruit where AI can also be integrated with BIM to give us much more advanced solutions. And then the seventh or the sixth that I have here is construction analytics. So these are two things. So AI can be leveraged for construction sites where you are using it to monitor. So a very important aspect of AI that is useful for site is the computer vision. So today you can infuse that with drones and whatnot to detect safety issues on sites. So there's a lot of solutions there. You also can use AI to analyze the data that is coming from sites to give you much more insights that you might not be able to detect by just the human intelligence. So there are a lot of tools here, and there are two things here. Like I said, you have the construction on one side and you have data analytics on the other side. So some of the tools I have here is this Sparkle.ai. You have Document Crunch that help you to analyze your contract information and whatnot. You have Inspect Mind. Basically, what it does is that by the time you go to construction sites, you can record some video and all that, and you can infuse it into the platform, and it will help you to generate a report. So there are a lot of tools. You have this Deep Space AI and also Construction Cloud IQ, which are basically used for data analytics. So these are just some areas where it can use the data. There's a lot of data that's coming from construction sites, and this can be analyzed using AI tools to give us a lot more insights. So that's one area that AI is looking very promising in the near future. And then also you have building operations. So building information modeling, as you saw from the definition earlier, it spans the entire life cycle of every built asset, from design to construction to all the way to operations and even demolition. So the same is AI. AI can also be leveraged during the operations stage of every built asset. So for example, you have tools like Power BIM and Autodesk Tandem today that can be used during the operation stage. So solutions like digital twin, where the digital assets or the digital version of that facility is communicating in real time with the physical building. These are areas where you can begin to analyze those data, and you can even use it for things like predictive maintenance and a lot of other use cases. So as you can see, AI spans across almost all the entire phases of every built assets lifecycle. And then we also have business operations. So day-to-day run of business is also something that is very key. So this is an area where you can begin to use some of these large language models, LLMs, and assistants to augment your day-to-day businesses. So you can use things like Microsoft's Copilots, Microsoft 365 Copilot, ChatGPT, Cloud, Perplexity, Firefly. So Firefly, for example, is a solution that you can integrate with your meetings. So it just follows you to your meeting, and at the end of the meeting, it will basically record the entire meeting, and it can help you to summarize that meeting, and it can even query it, can ask it a lot of things. So these are areas where AI can actually begin to augment our day-to-day business operations. So that's also another low-hanging fruit. And I believe this is the last one, which is interoperability. So earlier I mentioned that one of the issues we faced with a lot of tools, a lot of solutions and software in the market, by the time we moved from CAD to BIM, we had a lot of vendors like Autodesk, Graphisoft, Bentley, Nemetschek, and all of them. They had a lot of solutions, and it became increasingly hard to exchange information between all these solutions. But today, we are beginning to see tools that are leveraging what you call data layer above this software. So they are kind of bypassing the IFC file approach, whereby you are now extracting data directly from those software. So you have two interesting solutions. One is Speckle, which is what you're seeing here on the left. So basically what it does is that it can communicate in real time with a lot of different software, and it can extract the data from them. And then all those data, you can now use it for your other designs. You can use it to carry out analysis and do a lot of things. The same thing with Autodesk Data Exchange And one good thing about all these tools, like I said earlier, they are all cloud-based solutions, which is why you see that where the industry is headed is basically cloud. So because most of these emerging tools, they are all cloud-based, it's easier to integrate and extract those data and use them for even more advanced analysis. So that is the 10th. So I've basically illustrated 10 different use cases where AI can be integrated with BIM to deliver some advanced solutions. Now, I must mention one interesting resource. There's a guy called Stefan Mikulik. He has actually done a good job. So you can actually use this QR code here. It has a hub that is hosted on Notion that has well over 1,000 different AI tools categorized into multiple use cases and whatnot. So you can actually go to the website, and it's quite a lot. So I actually extracted most of these tools as well from that website. And it also has a training as well. I call Mastering AI in AEC. So it's also a very good resource. So I highly recommend that platform. You can as well go there, and you can query it. It even has a custom GPT that also is training with the website as well. So you can as well ask it a lot of things. So there are a lot of use cases. And as I said earlier, AI is something that's in the early phases of AI, and it's rapidly changing every day. So some of these tools I mentioned might not eventually be the winner in their categories, but these are some promising tools and use cases that I have been able to identify myself. So before I do some few demo, you can see that I'm already halfway into time. So I just want to quickly talk about some of the barriers and the way forward. So one thing that I see as a barrier when it comes to AI is that, our industry is not as kind of open as the IT industry. So one of the barriers, more like a question, is how much access do you think that software vendors have to data? And basically, if you are going to compare solutions like Forma and the likes to things like ChatGPT and all that, for those IT solutions to train their for them to train their models, they basically have to scrape the entire internet. All the publicly available information were scraped to generate the billions and billions of data that were used to train those models. So how much access to the vendors in our industry? Do we even want them to have that much access? For example, a company like Autodesk, do we want them to have access to all the models that are residing in their servers? And for example, the Autodesk Construction Cloud, do we want them to have as much access to be able to use those models to analyze and be able to create functional models that we can use to analyze and do other these use cases that we mentioned? So that is one area I'm beginning to see. Although one thing that Autodesk, what they mentioned in one of their webinars, is they are creating their own pseudo buildings, like fake buildings that they can now use to train those data. But that's one area that's, because no matter how much they create, that might not reflect the real life scenario. And also, they cannot have as much data as you can have in the mainstream solutions like ChatGPT and Fireflies and all those other copilots that I mentioned earlier. And then another barrier I see is the issue of regulation in our industry. The AEC industry is a highly regulated industry. So to what extent do we think that regulations and standards will impact the use of AI tools on projects? So I also want to give another example. Let's say you're working on a very high profile project, maybe somewhere in China or in Japan or US or wherever. And then you need to carry out some seismic analysis, to analyze things like earthquake and all those things. So as critical as all those kind of analysis are we really going to rely on AI, whereby they are generated by a black box, so to say? So how do we actually defend how we arrived at those analyses? So because you are going to submit those to the regulators and all that. So these are some issues that, they are beginning to spark conversations in our industry. So there are a couple of barriers, but one good thing I'm also beginning to see is that these are software vendors. They're also beginning to partner to integrate their various ecosystem to be able to, utilize each other's resources to create better tools. So these are just some of the barriers I'm thinking about. And of course, the way forward is obviously more collaboration and more integration across all the stakeholders, both the vendors, the designers, even the client themselves, and everybody needs to actually collaborate and for us to be able to yield a better solution or integration in the future. So at this point, I just want to quickly do a quick demo so that it's not only just theory that I'm talking. So based on what I personally have access to, I want to use Autodesk format because I have access to that at the moment. But that's not to say that that's the best solution that we have, but that's one of the solutions I've mentioned in the course of this presentation. So I will quickly just showcase how you can use Autodesk format with Revit and all these other tools. So of course, let's assume that you've never heard of format before. You just go to Google and type Autodesk format, and you definitely see all that. And, so let me just go to the first link I have here. And from when you get to this place, you choose, you are starting a new trial or you access your hub. If you already have a hub, you see that link there. Otherwise, you have to start a trial or purchase the license. So of course, after that, you have to sign in. You have to sign in with your account. And that will take you to the, depending if it's the first time, you might have to choose your hub, either US or Europe and whatnot, but I already have access. So I won't spend so much time, but I just wanted to show some of those, generative design and some of those things I talked about earlier, just so that you have a feel. Of course, I know some people already have access to the format, they might have tried out some of these things. Of course, you can start a new project here, or you can also pick one of the existing demo projects. So the first thing you need to do is to choose your location. So just for demonstration, I'll just choose London here, and I'll just pick. And of course, you can just zoom in, but there's a limit to how much you can zoom in and zoom out. So I'll just pick this just for demonstration, and then you can confirm your map area. And so it will take a while too, because a lot of all the information you have here are basically OpenStreetMap and some open source information that is gathering based on your specific location. So sometimes the data you find in that particular area will not be available in that area, depending on what open information is able to source from that particular jurisdiction. So the way format works is that you can have multiple proposals for one project, and you can also carry out a lot of conceptual analysis at the early stages of your project. So it's taking a while to come up. So the first thing you have to do, like I said, depending on the area, you need to import some data. So because of this area that I chose, you can see the OpenStreetMap, you can add this, and then you can also add a couple of other things depending on what you want. So for now, most of these are free, but in the future, I'm sure that some of them will become paid. So depending on what you need, some of them are, you can see that this one has to do with topography. This is a 3D terrain model. It's already added. Some of them are geographical information. So depending on what data you have available in that area, this is a terrain model, terrain and whatnot. And this is the road. So I'll just add the terrain and road for now. And then you now need to define your area. So this is now what I have here. So you can see without doing much, it's already showing me what I have in that area. So this is now the point where by the time you come here, you go to your library, you can begin to add some of these things that you've already brought in. So you can now add them to your project. So as I just double click on it now, you can see that it's trying to load it into my site. And then after that, you can now quickly use the generative tools here on the right to come up with forms. Of course, because of time, I won't be able to go into details. So what I'm gonna have to do is to just use one of the demo projects, but it's a very simple interface. So what I just wanted to point out here is that you can see what this looks like already. So I can just add this. You can see with just very few clicks, you can see what's happening. I just added this from scratch just now, and I can also add the roads. So I just click on that as well, and to add the roads to this place. So even with this very simple few clicks that I've done here, I can begin to carry out analysis, right? So this is the terrain model, and this is the roads. So you can see by the time you come to this place, you can add extensions as well. And that's a good thing with format because it's running on Autodesk. It's already have access to the whole of Autodesk App Store. So we have solutions like TestFit and so many of them that are already integrated into this. So that's one of the advantage of this Autodesk solution because it's already has a lot of integrations compared to some other ones. And so you can invite project members and do a lot of things. So I will not dwell so much on this. But like I said earlier, you can create different proposals and you can do a lot of design options and whatnot. If you look here, you can see the road, you can see the buildings, you can see the terrain and whatnot. You can choose which of them are on the base and which of them are specific to a particular proposal and whatnot. So what I wanted to point out is that for you to begin to create forms, unlike in Revit where you are basically doing everything from scratch, in this generative design approach, you are just giving it some inputs. For example, let's say I want to create this surface. All I have to do now is to specify so let's say I click on this cube and I drop this here. So you can see this, the way it's just coming out. Now I can just come here now and begin to specify what's the width, what's the length, so it kind of adjusts in real time. If I also want to create a building, I can tell it the number of floors, the floor to floor height, and all those things. And so because I'm kind of conscious of time, I won't spend so much time on this. But if you now come up here, you will also see a lot of analysis that you can perform. Just at the early stage of a project, you can begin to carry out some hour analysis, you can perform daylight potential analysis, wind analysis, and a lot more, just with very few clicks. And this is based on the actual contextual data. It's not some random analysis. This is actually, real time and contextual. So of course, if I want to push this out to Revit, you can always share this, right? So by the time I come to, just a minute. I can see there are a lot of questions, but yeah, so I won't spend so much time on this. So you can create new proposals and you can also push this out to Revit. So if I come to a proposal that I have here, you can just click here and you can see Revit here. You can send this to Revit, or if you've not downloaded the plugin, you can just download the Revit beta. So when I send this to Revit now, you need to make sure that you have the same version, the same account that I used to log in here as well in Revit. So if I come into Revit here, I just start a new project. So let's say I start architectural template and whatnot. You need to make sure that it's the same account. So by the time you go to collaborate, here, you will see the former, sorry, master and sites, not collaborate. So you see the former panel here. So you can load a proposal. So if you click on load proposal now, just make sure that, so connect, download latest version. I've not opened this in a while, but so basically what it does is that it will extract, to just communicate in real time. It allows you, this will take a while, so I won't wait for this. But basically, this will bring that design into Revit. And there are two ways. You can see here, you can update proposal. So what happens is whatever changes you've made in Revit, it will send it back to the cloud. Right, so because of time, I don't think this might take a while. But yeah, so what I'm trying to say here is that the two solutions, so Revit is a detailed design software and Forma is a conceptual design software. So the two of them can communicate in real time. As you're making your modifications on the cloud, you can push it to Revit. As you're making your detailed updates in Revit, you can push it out to Forma on the cloud and whatnot. So it's just bi-directional. So this might take some time, but I think at this point, because of time, I will stop here. But you can see that there's a whole lot of use cases that we can begin to integrate. And of course, if you took a note, you also see the speckle add-in that I already have in Revit. It's also similar workflow with Forma, whereby they all communicate in real time. So these are the ways that these tools can begin to enable us to advance what we already have today. And just to mention, there are a lot of tools that are coming out every day. So I will stop here for now, and I can see that there are a lot of questions. So I think I will we can move to the Q&A. If I have time, I'll go back to Revit.
Great, Onyema. Thank you very much for this amazing presentation, full of tools, very practical. So just a quick reminder, we don't give certifications for this masterclass, but everyone here will receive an email with a recording of this event, okay? And then we'll just answer a couple of questions, and then my colleague Dimitrios will give more details about the program. So stay tuned, and you can maybe answer some questions there. So Onyema, we have many questions. I'll give it to you to just pick a few of them for maybe 15 minutes to just tackle a few of them, okay? And so I'll and if not, contact us or fill in the forms of the programs and we can give you further information. Okay. So yeah, can you see the questions? If not, to you.
Okay, let me go back to my. Yeah, stop sharing for now.
Yeah.
Okay. That's under the Q&A. Thank you very much for turning up. No, I've not used Blender. I know that Blender is a lot of people are using it to advocate for Open BIM, which is a great tool, but I've not really used it myself. But of course, I've seen a lot of people showcase what it's capable of doing. It's an Open BIM software, but I've not used it myself. Yeah, something.
Yeah, we have a couple of them in the chat section as well. So
okay, yeah, someone is asking about NFPA, which is National Fire Protection. Yeah, so like I said, if you have the standards and the codes from these bodies, you can always create maybe custom GPTs. I didn't have the time to go into that as well. So basically the way it works is you train the existing solution with a lot of others. You basically upload the documents into it and you can begin to prompt it. You can begin to basically ask the GPT, or for example, you can see the one I showed you that the start.build. I'm sure that that's how they came up with the solution. They already built it on other standards. So of course it can be used for NFPA, which is the National Fire Protection, but it's also important that you validate. So which is why if you look at the tool, the struct.build, when it generates a solution or an answer to your query, it always gives you a reference to where it got that from so that you can always confirm that, because if you're submitting that to a regulator or a body, you need to be able to show where you got information from. So yeah, I'm sure that it can be used for NFPA, but yeah, always make sure to validate the source.
yeah, Joseph says, can AI convert auto-generate point cloud from recap to a BIM model instead of tracing in Revit?
Yes, that's what the Orivos tool that I showed is used for. So the Orivos is basically helps to automatically generate Revit models from point cloud. And then it basically uses computer vision to be able to identify what's a steel, what's a beam, what's a wall, and to basically generate the BIM model for you. And of course, it might not be perfect, but it will save you a lot of time compared to doing it from scratch. So there are a lot of solutions like that. But the one I showed earlier, which is the Orivos, that's basically what it does.
Turja, sorry, I don't know if that I'm pronouncing that correctly. What is, in your opinion, the best single data source of truth to work with? What software to prevent data to be scattered?
Yeah, there are a lot of common data environment. I'm sure that every good common data environment can serve as a single source of truth. But arguably, the most common one that I've seen on many projects is the ACC, which is Autodesk Construction Cloud. But I would say that most of these common data environment, they can all integrate different file formats. So be it Revit, be it from different vendors, they can all integrate, they can read all those 3D models on the cloud, and stakeholders can make comments, they can all collaborate from that cloud. So that can easily serve. And some of them can even be used for construction stage, things like Procore and the likes. So I would say any good common data environment, there are a lot of them, but personally I've used ACC, or I've seen it use a lot of projects. So yeah, I'll recommend that as well. So I can see there are a lot of chats as well. But I think You are mute.
Sorry, now I'm here.
Yeah.
Here, Avinash says, is AI and BIM possible in linear projects, infrastructure projects?
Yeah, sure. Of course, it depends on so like I said, the engineering categories for BIM, they might not be as robust as that of architecture and buildings in vertical BIM, but yeah, there are a few solutions. The ones I mentioned under engineering, I think there's one that is infrastructure, and there is one. There's also some of them allow you to build custom solutions. I know of one platform called Victor. So Victor is also allows people to build infrastructure solutions based. It's more like a platform where people can build custom solutions, but trying to open the engineering. So you have this. Most of these are building based anyway, but yeah. So infrastructure, there might not be as many solutions available, but there are a few, which is also why I recommend this. You can always also go to this website, this ACI Hub. You can also type infrastructure and perhaps see if there are custom solutions that are available. You know, a lot of these are just emerging tools that are still very much new. So you also need to confirm that they are working properly.
Okay, here Anne says, I work with GIS and drones. How will AI assist me?
Yes. So drones, there are a lot of tools already because computer vision is something that is also is a low-hanging fruit for AI. So
well, I can offer some answer to this question since I'm actually specialized in GIS and drones.
okay. Yes.
Basically, BIM with drones and GIS are being connected with the concept of BIM heritage, which is basically how we can extract BIM models from point cloud models that we have produced with drones. There is an application of Autodesk that is doing that. It's called Recap. We're actually using it in the master program in BIM management, in global BIM management. But other ways with drones are usually, we use them so we can collect data. So with this data, we can produce point cloud models, or we can do other things. We can do remote sensing. We can do data collection for maps. Or we can do a lot of things. Now, AI can help us in the drones as far as the data collection management with classification. There we're talking about pictures. So we're talking about classification of data. And in GIS, I mean, there has been already some ways of how we can use AI in GIS for spatial analysis, and we keep on progressing. But all this can be connected. I mean, BIM, GIS, AI. AI is a technology that could be applied either on BIM or GIS. Drones is just another tool like AI, for example. So I hope I have covered you a little bit with my answer on general how we can use it.
Great, Dimitrios, thank you. Chucks says, how can those in the underdeveloped countries like Nigeria tap into this integration across professionals with the help of AI and BIM? So Onyema, you're actually based in Nigeria, if I'm correct?
Yes, I'm in Nigeria at the moment. Yeah. So, well, I would say for a start, there are always some cheap solutions. Solutions are not too expensive. So, for example, some of these large language models are free. They have free tiers and they also have subscription. So, a solution like ChatGPT, for example, I have the subscription that is $20 per month. That might be huge for some people, but I'm sure something like that, even just with that, you can begin to use it to explore some custom solutions that you can build. You know, you can always train it with the available data that you have, and you can begin to create custom solutions from there instead of processing. So what I mentioned, approaches for a frame. So instead of you shaping up or you buying up existing out-of-the-box solutions, you can shape up some of those existing models to suit your needs. So that might become effective. And even Stable Diffusion, for example, which is mostly focused towards image generation, is also freely available, and people are using it to build a lot of custom tools. So just for a start, you can always explore what's free. And from there, you can begin to, as you get more insights and as you know, use it in more practical scenarios, you can now know where best to channel your limited funds that you have.
Great. I'll just tackle the last question because we're running out of time and I want to give the floor over to Dimitrios. So Nikhil says, any AI tools for clash resolution?
As far as I know, there is not so much yet because clash resolution is something that, you know, you still need to resolve in the modeling tool. So to the best of my knowledge, is this solution called the speckle I mentioned earlier. It can do a bit of detection, but that's basically the most I can do. You still have to resolve that clash in the authoring tool. So I don't think there's any solution yet that can detect and resolve your clashes yet, because you still have to go back to the authoring tool to resolve that clash. So I'm not aware of any at the moment.
Okay, great. Onyema, thank you very much. I'll just share my screen and give the last minutes over to Dimitrios. He
Thank
will
you very
give
much.
you, no worries, more details about the programs we offer. So the floor is
Thank you.
yours, Dimitrios.
Thank you very much, Josefina. And I can say that that was very exciting, very wonderful, insightful presentation. So thank you as well, Onyema. I think I'm sharing the same excitement as the majority of the audience. I can, if you check on the chat, we can understand pretty well that everyone has been very excited. And I'm also excited that I can see a lot of people in the chat that have done our programs, are currently doing their programs, and some of them are also in the process of admission. So my name is Dimitrios. I'm the manager of the International Department of Admissions, and I will give you just a short overview regarding the contents of the two programs that we're offering here. Today's presentation was in the context of two programs that our school is organizing: the postgraduate course in artificial intelligence applied to construction and the global masters in BIM management. So starting with the postgraduate course in artificial intelligence applied to construction, this is focusing on exactly what we watched here today, the application of AI in all the different uses. And basically the program is for 4 months. It guides you through the fundamentals of artificial intelligence applied to construction. And then we go each and every different kind of the BIM uses, like in design, in implementation, documentation management, collaborative design, cost estimation, project planning, application of AI in construction site, during the construction, AI in risk detection. We can also use AI for analysis, structural, MEP, energy efficiency analysis, or in quantity management monitoring, for example, or in facility management. So the short course is going through everything. We use software. The methodology that we use is time flexible, interactive. The course is set to begin in October 2024, so the time is closing. And if you would like to learn some more things, talk to me or a member of my team. You can easily scan this QR code, put your details, and you will be connected in the following days with me or someone from my team. And we will provide you with all the information that you need to know. We can answer any questions. We can discuss how this program is going to help your professional development in the near future. Now, let's go to the next, the master program. This is basically a 1-year master's program focusing on holistically on the management of BIM. So basically, we go through 3 basic principles, the 3 basic directions in the program: the application of the BIM software in the whole life cycle of a construction project, the managerial workflows, which is the focus of the program, and we want also to provide you with some skills regarding the organizational side of BIM. So you would be able to operate, manage, and lead a team of BIM professionals. So the program begins in November 2024. It's for 1 year. The whole year is divided in 5 academic blocks. We start with the information management, how we handle the negotiation with the client, how we can structure the BP, the EIR, the CDEs, the different kind of standards and ISOs that we can use for the project. Then we go and see how BIM is being applied in the design stage. Following that, we continue with the project controls. After that, we see how BIM is being applied in the asset management, where we can see the information exchange, asset management, how we can build up a COBIT databases through all the different stages of a construction project. And we're closing with a very popular part, the part of BIM implementation, where the candidates are actually learning how they can apply BIM inside an organization, a company, a team, how they can organize everything. We use a lot of software, as you can see. I will be able to provide you with more information about where we use each of the software applications. The program is also offering you a lot of accreditation. We have accreditation from international organizations like Building Transformations, SIAT, University of Barcelona is accrediting the program. The methodology is, again, time flexible, interactive. We would love to hear what you're thinking about the program, guide you, talk with you on how this program is going to help you in the development of your professional career. You just need to scan this QR code, put your details, and we will be contacting you, as I said, in the following days. That's all I had to present you with. Josefina?
Thank you, Dimitrios, for that information. And as I said, Onyema is a professor of this master's. So here you had a sneak peek of what he can offer you. But
exactly.
So thank you all. Thank you for your participation. You will be receiving this recording and hope you can contact us for further details. Thank you, Onyema, Dimitrios, and
thank you,
hope
everybody.
to see you soon.
Talk to you soon.
Bye-bye. Thanks.